My daughter hid my husband's affair. I don't know how to move on.
What are you doing that for, daughter?
Maybe you move on into 2025.
You should.
I, female 49, was married to my ex-husband Derek, 49 male, for 20 years before divorcing a few months ago. We have 2 kids, a daughter, 22 female, and a son, 17 male. I found out that Derek was having a 2-year affair and my world was shattered. But what hurt almost as much was discovering that my daughter had known about the affair the whole time. She actively hid it from me for 2 years, lied, covered for him, and never once tried to warn me. And this comes from throwaway Liz and a Blizz on the r/OK Storytime subreddit. So when I found out, I was devastated, not just by my husband's betrayal, but by my daughter's choice to keep it from me. She was young at the time. I understand it was a difficult position for her, but the pain was immense. I never confronted her directly, thinking it might affect her as she was about to go off to college. I just told her I knew, that I understood, and I tried to move on. But after she left, I found myself distancing myself from her more and more. It wasn't planned. I just needed space to heal, and that meant not calling her as often or reaching out as much. Fast forward a year and a half later, and I've started dating someone, 41 male, who has a 10-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. Recently, we all went to Disney together, and he posted a family photo of us on social media. For context, my boyfriend covered all of the expenses as a gift for his daughter's birthday, wanting to make it special for her. Along with my son and me, she chose her 2 cousins to come along, making it a big family style trip that was all about her. My daughter must have seen it because she didn't call me for over a month afterwards. And honestly, I wasn't as affected by her absence as I would have been before. I still love her, but every interaction brings up that pain. She was screaming, saying I obviously hadn't forgiven her and that I'd shut her out on purpose. She accused me of quote unquote replacing her with my boyfriend and his daughter. She kept saying it was a long time ago. I was a kid. I didn't mean to hurt you. She said she thought she was doing the right thing by staying quiet. Also, redoing the math, I think she might have been more around 18.
Old enough to still be able to make a decision about that.
That she didn't know how to tell me and that she was terrified of breaking her family apart. She asked me if I'd ever forgive her or if I'd moved on for good. I tried to tell her that I loved her and never wanted to replace her, but she kept pushing that I should just get over it by now and that I'd abandon her for this new life. To top it off, my ex-husband later called me, furious, accusing me of leaving my daughter for a younger man and a new family and a big old bag at Disney World.
Yeah, that big old Disney bag.
I added that part. He even had the nerve to call me selfish for moving on. Ironically, his girlfriend is 30 and he's the one who blew up the family with the affair.
Exactly.
You cannot talk. You got to be like Hannah and
keep it silent.
Nice.
It's like no one understands that I'm still trying to recover from years of betrayal, and it feels like I'm expected to just let it go, as if my pain doesn't matter. My son, who lives with me, found out about his sister hiding the affair after overhearing my husband's mom and sister talking. Remember, he's the younger one. He's currently 17, I believe.
Yeah.
He was crushed and hasn't forgiven her either, and they've barely spoken since. I never wanted him to know, but it feels like the entire family is divided now, and I don't know how to fix it. I'm in therapy, but I still feel lost. Part of me knows she was young and didn't know how to handle it, but another part of me feels like she chose him over me. I love my daughter, but every time we talk, the hurt resurfaces. I don't know if I'm failing her as a mother or if I'm protecting myself. I feel like I've emotionally checked out and I don't know how to reconnect. And we have an edit coming up.
God, you got to talk to her about what you're feeling. She doesn't know.
I feel like we need some family therapy. Like, mom's in therapy, which is great, but I think that the two of them need to sit down with someone to help. Like, hey, dad is the one that started all this. Why are we squabbling with each other? Edit. Just to clarify, my divorce actually happened a few months ago, not 3 years ago, as I had originally mentioned. My sister, who is a bit of a scatterbrain, encouraged me to post here and typed out much of it for me. In the process, she got the timeline wrong and I didn't catch it before posting. My daughter was 17, so now we fully understand the age, when she found out about the affair. She had a lot going on at the time, including having to change schools schools due to some personal issues and had to repeat a year. So when I found out it was less than 2 years ago, I hope this clears up any confusion. We have an update. First, I want to thank everyone who responded to my post. I was honestly overwhelmed by the sheer number of responses. I tried my best to read through as many as I could, and some of the advice was hard to hear, but necessary. It's been a lot to take in, but one comment really stayed with me. Someone mentioned how fragile life is and how little time we really have with the people we love. That struck me deeply, and I've been so consumed by the pain and anger that I forgot to think about what I'd like my relationship with my daughter to look like in the long run. If something were to happen tomorrow, would I be okay with leaving things as they are?
That really crystallizes things if you think like that.
Gets it right into perspective.
Yeah.
That thought stayed with me, and within a few days, I decided to contact my daughter. I told her I wanted us to talk, not to rehash the past or point fingers, but to figure out how we could move forward. She was hesitant at first, which I completely understood. We had the conversation a few nights ago, and while it wasn't easy, I'm grateful she was willing to open up. There were tense moments, and I won't lie, it was hard to hear some of what she said, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like we were finally addressing what had been festering between us. So we talked about what had happened, and I finally asked her for the truth about everything. When I first discovered her father's affair, he told me that she had always known about it. In fact, he claimed that she had been his ally, hiding things from me multiple times. He even said that she disliked me and was on his side. Hearing that from him was devastating. Conspiracy theory, I think that the dad lied everywhere.
Yes!
And pitted the daughter against her, and the daughter said none of that.
Like, he's getting it scot-free.
I'm astounded that, I mean, if I was her, I'd be like, no, she didn't.
Are we trusting the
It
cheater
sounds like-
or your child daughter?
Yeah, he got caught and is now like, and by the way, our daughter is on my side and doesn't like you anymore.
She loves me cheating. She's
Yeah.
like, oh, this is great. Hearing that from him was devastating. I couldn't believe my daughter would do something like that or feel that way about me. The way I found out about the affair was awful, and the idea that my daughter had played any part in it, even unknowingly, made it so much worse. At first, she was very reluctant to talk about it, but eventually she opened up and started sharing everything, including what led up to her actions. A few months before discovering the affair, she had been involved in a difficult situation at her high school. Without going into specifics, it was a matter where her actions led to serious consequences. The school had a zero tolerance policy, and as a result, she was expelled. She had to transfer to a new school and repeat the whole school year. On top of that, her grades took a hit, and she was finding it challenging to get back on track. When it happened, I felt it was important for her to face the full weight of her actions and take responsibility for what she had done. I grounded her, took away the electronics, hoping the consequences would help her reflect and grow. She's already had all this punishment from the school and everything else. Do we layer additional punishment in terms of grounding and everything else? Does that hurt us? Does that help us?
I think it could help, but you should probably frame it the right way. Because it's still, we don't know exactly what her behavior was or what was going on, but whatever it is it's like not a positive thing and it needs to be addressed. So you don't want like it to just be like, oh, school expelled me, but my parents, they didn't care. It's like,
Yeah.
you have to be like, I think, maybe instead of being like, you're grounded from electronics, it's like, maybe like no electronics will be better. Don't even make it about punishment. Just make it about change. Just trying to switch things up.
I wanted her to understand the gravity of the situation and emerge from it as a better person. So her father, however, completely disagreed with my approach. He felt I was being too harsh, insisting that she had already learned her lesson and needed support rather than punishment. The tension in our household became unbearable. Between my frustration with him and my disappointment in her actions, I found it harder and harder to communicate properly with her. There was constant fights, arguments that seemed to erupt over everything and nothing at the same time. It wasn't just them. Therapy over the past year helped me realize that I played a part too. My hurt and frustration came out as anger, and instead of addressing things calmly, I let my emotions take control. I was constantly angry and frustrated, and my mood probably created an even more tense and uncomfortable environment for everyone. So when she found out about this affair shortly after, she was angry at me and started reeling from everything that had happened. She admitted that part of her decision to stay quiet was fueled by her desire to get back at me. She felt like keeping the secret was her way of taking revenge, though she now realizes how wrong that was. She also told me that she tried to get her father to come clean, but he discouraged her from doing so, telling her that I had already been disappointed enough by her situation and she should make things worse. Feeling trapped, she lied and kept lying, hoping it would somehow blow over without me finding out. Hearing this from her was heartbreaking. It didn't justify what she did, but it helped me understand her perspective. Knowing her father pressured her to keep his secret makes my anger towards him even stronger. He broke everything with his affair and then used our our daughter to cover for him, making her feel trapped and responsible for his lies. I hate what he put her through. To be honest, our marriage was already going through a rough patch at the time, and we likely would have ended up divorcing anyways. However, it's one thing to fail as a husband, but to fail so completely as a parent is unforgivable.
True. You don't go back from saying something like that. That's crazy.
That's such a great point. They always had a good relationship, and I never wanted to ruin that for her, even when I was angry at him. But seeing how he used her in his lies has only deepened my resentment. And then to be clear, it's almost 100% that he lied to OP saying, oh, the daughter enjoyed it or whatever. I guess she kind of did.
She did admit that she knew about it and used it as like a thing. But it is true also that the dad specifically was like,
he spun it.
You're already screwed up enough. Like, you think your mom wants to hear this?
Yeah.
It's like, ugh.
No. I told her that I've been hurt, not just by her actions, but how deeply they shook my trust in her. At the same time, I reminded her that I love her and I always will. And I said that while I can't change the past, I want to rebuild our relationship. We agreed to take things one step at a time, and I suggested we try online therapy together. And while she was hesitant at first, she agreed. She's already been seeing a therapist on her own and wasn't sure about opening up in a joint session, but I think she ultimately realized how much I want to make this work. I also brought up her brother. They've never had the closest relationship, and he's always been more of a reserved, independent person, while she's more outgoing and emotional. There's been tension between them in the past, and ever since he overheard what happened with her hiding the affair, they've barely spoken. I've tried to talk to him about maybe giving her another chance, even when I wasn't on the best of terms with her. I really want them to have a good relationship, but I also don't want to push him too much. He's his own person, and I don't want him to feel like I'm trying to force him into something that he isn't ready for or doesn't want to do. He's allowed to make his own decisions, and if they need time apart to heal, I will respect that. But you know what I respect the most, Dakota?
Tell me.
The fact that you can listen to full episodes with stories like this by going to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app and searching OK Storytime. Wow, so many things to break down.
And I saw some comments being like, clearly you don't have teenagers, and it's like not punishing student after they get expelled is wild. And it's like, it's true. I don't have teenagers.
Yeah.
But I'm more talking about trying to just reframe the concept of the punishment into something else so that they're more likely to even do it. Because if you try to be like, no electronics for you, then they're going to be like, oh, come on. Like, but if you can try to reframe it in their head, which might not work, but like you got to try. And then if it doesn't work, you go, all right, well, I'm still taking your phone away. So
someone mentioned the unrealistic standards that we often hold women to, and I've been thinking a lot about that. I don't want to hold her to any impossible standard just because she's a woman. She is the light of my life, but sometimes I realize I've shared everything in such a negative way because of how it all played out. I'm just trying to make sense of it all. I don't know exactly where I stand or what I'm feeling at times. I'm just moving through life like everyone else, doing the best I can. Thank you all again for your advice and for giving me the push that I needed to start this conversation. It's not easy, but I'm hopeful we'll get through this one step at a time.
that's what you got to do.
I think we're on a good path to figuring it out.
One step at a time.
One step at a time.
One day at a time.
I like it.
Yep.